welcome. I'm Jason Elster, president of Downtown Madison, Inc., and we are here today to talk about a great subject, 880 cities, talking about making our downtown a place for 8-year-olds and for 80-year-olds. And if we do that, we're going to make it a great place for everyone. We have an excellent panel discussion. We've got 5 great panelists with us here today, and we're going to have plenty of time for your questions at the end. We're excited for our first Nosh at Noon of 2022. Look forward to several more happening this year. We've got lots more events on our DMI website, including we're going to be next to in Michael's home, Michael Johnson's home, with the Latino Academy for Workforce Development for our New Faces, New Places on Thursday, May 12th, same night as the night market. So come on out and see us. Before we begin with the panel discussion, though, we want to say a huge thank you to our partners and sponsors for today's event. Both have been longtime sponsors of this event. So we're very excited to first bring forward Chris Gillings, the Business Development Coordinator for Scenair. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Jason. How are you doing?
Doing great, although the rain is just continuing to come down. I think my feet are still wet from the bike ride in this morning.
I'm ready for it to be. I'm ready for it to be spring too. I'm ready for it to be spring too.
One of these days. One of these days.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the introduction. I think this is our 4th or 5th year of sponsoring this series. For those of you that are not familiar with Scenair, we are a CDFI, Community Development Finance Group. Our major efforts are in providing both equity capital for affordable housing and in providing loans and debt capital for everything from housing projects to other community development efforts. As a not-for-profit CDFI, we hold very close to a why statement that helps define why we exist. And we exist because, and what we believe in as to why we exist is because we believe that everyone has the rights and the opportunities that should come from living in healthy communities. And we've really gravitated to the Nosh at Noon series because it allows us to stretch our legs into things that don't have to do with housing and our day-to-day work. And DMI does a tremendous job of advocating for a healthy downtown and by extension, then a healthier Madison and Dane County. Over the course of the pandemic, we've all had a chance to really reflect on a lot of the ideas that go around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of those is an important topic for today. And it really dovetails into some of my favorite memories of being around downtown and seeing some of the energy that we used to really enjoy. As a UW grad, I remember every summer when seniors would come back to campus and would take over stretches of downtown for a lot of the activities that went on in the summertime that UW and its extension programs put on to really welcome that community into downtown. And of course, Jonathan and a lot of the work and a lot of the vitality that comes from having the Children's Museum be such an instrumental core part of downtown really kind of set those kind of boundaries and remind us that inclusion runs on all vectors, including age. How do we provide accessible, healthy, and vibrant environments for all? So I want to applaud DMI for putting on this session and coming up with such a tremendous panel. And we're happy to be a part of it as we discuss what really is at our core, which is sponsoring healthy communities.
Well, Chris, thank you for all you do. Scenair, fantastic group doing a lot of great work in the community. So thank you for your longtime partnership here. Speaking of longtime partnerships, we have my former boss, the person that hired me, the most recent past chair, or second most recent past chair of the DMI Board of Directors and the Chief Operating Officer at Fiore Companies, Stacy Niemann. How are you today, Stacy?
I'm great, thank you. And don't hold it against me, folks, that I hired Jason. So
should they hold that against you? I thought it was a good decision.
I consider it one of my proudest achievements. So as Jason said, I'm Stacy Nemeth with the Fiore Companies. For those of you not familiar with Fiore, we are a diversified investment company. We've been in Madison for 101 years. 2021 was our 100th anniversary. And so obviously a really long-term commitment to the city of Madison. And we are predominantly in Madison invested in commercial real estate and much of it in the downtown. And really the success of downtown is so important to the community and the county as a whole. And exactly as Chris said, a healthy, vibrant community means accessibility and equity for all members of the community. So we are thrilled to be sponsoring this program today. We respect and appreciate DMI's work in all of these areas, and look forward to continuing the work because we all know while we've made strides in Madison, there is still a lot of work to be done. And we look forward to being part of that work and are happy to sponsor events like this that open the dialogue and continue the conversation of the work that needs to be done to create the downtown and the city of Madison that we all want to see. So thank you for this program.
Well, thank you, Stacy, so much for all you've done for our downtown. We really appreciate it. We've got this nice building directly behind you that is owned and run by the Fiore company. So she just said I could be on their maintenance staff for just looking out the window and making sure.
That's right.
Yes. All right, good. All right. Well, thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Chris, as well. Today, we're going to get into 880 cities, how we can create equitable, vibrant, healthy communities for our youngest and our oldest within our community. If we can build it for an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old, we can build it for everyone. And that's what we're trying to do here in downtown. We have an excellent panel. We're going to start off with Rob Gottschalk from Vanderwall, who helped frame the issues here. On the 8 side, we have Jonathan Zarap from the Children's Museum, Michael Johnson from the Boys and Girls Club. And from the 80 side, we have Sally Jo Spaney from the Madison Senior Center and Darren Wazinski from AARP. So we're excited, but we want to hear your questions. We're going to have time at the end. If you have questions, you can send them in either the chat or the Q&A at any time. And we'll get to those questions at the end. So submit those questions right through and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. We are recording this as well, so we'll have it live, not live. I guess if you're recording it, you wouldn't see it live. I don't know why I said that, but you'll be able to watch it at later times if we do well here. And apparently I'm not doing well the last 10 seconds. All right, we're going to start off here with laying the groundwork on why 880 cities are important with a great partner of DMI, Rob Gottschalk, who's a principal with Vanderwall and Associates, who does a lot of great work for downtown. Rob's going to set the scene about why 880 cities are important and why these, equitable, vibrant downtown cores for everybody are important. Good afternoon, Rob. How are you?
I am doing great, Jason. Thank you.
You are up, my friend.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Obviously, great topic today, and really looking forward to the discussion. I think, especially as we kind of in the, as an urban planner, the evolution of the city, as we kind of continue the evolution of kind of a government, employment, and university-driven downtown to really a living and cultural hub for the region. I think this topic is just spot on how we need to engage a lot more people in its vibrancy. So looking forward to it. I got a couple slides here to throw in to the conversation. So I think we'll just all right, so yeah, Jason and John and Madeline suggested, hey, just kind of cover some overall basics, but really focus on why creating places and spaces for kids and family seniors is such an important and integral part. And I think, I tend to start out with, from a market perspective, you look at our community and about 30% of Madison households have kids that are under 18. If you look at the broader Dane County area, it's even greater than that. And you also have about 21% of the population that's over 55. So you take there's some overlap here, but these two market segments, and you're talking about 50%. So we have to accommodate and would be critical to make sure that the downtown serves this broader community. So, from there, it's just, there's all sorts of other intangibles and tangibles, but when you focus on these various communities, I think it just has an enormous impact on the spirit of the place. When you're working on attracting more kids and seniors, I think we all know when there's youth around, it changes the atmosphere. And I think that's something that is not only important for the people who are living in the community, who are attracting to come to this place as a destination, but also when we're, one of our critical challenges is attracting workforce and people to this community. When people see that energy, it has a big impact, and it just creates a more playful place. And I think, that alone is significant, but it's also a community health and access to our cultural resources. So if it's vibrant and people want to come there, then it broadens the amount of people who then are intimately connected to some of the amazing cultural amenities and hubs and centers that are located in the downtown, that broadens our understanding. So just kind of a myriad of things where approaching families, kids, and seniors can have a major impact. John had also said, hey, well, and Jason, talk about what things should be thought about when you're thinking about designing places for these populations. When you think about kids and families, clearly learning and experiences is huge. That's big from a destination perspective, but also from our educational perspective, daycares, schools in proximity. Play is huge. And I'll touch on that in a minute. Obviously, the Children's Museum is just an amazing attraction and such a destination. But when I think about downtown, there's not, you get outside of that, and there is just not as many, except for what specific events and things that happen. So major events or the things that are within established centers of attraction and destination. The informal play and other kind of activities that hold people in a place longer is not rich. So I think that's something that you see in other cities, especially major urban areas. I think the Chicago's and New York's and Philly's and others are just have great examples of how that can be more knit into the fabric of the downtown. From a living standpoint, we don't have a lot of kids living in the downtown. I think we do the enrollment projections for MMSD. And I think within DMI's kind of central downtown footprint, there's about, 90 to 100 kids last we checked in 2019 that are enrolled in MMSD programs or schools. So I think that is something that there's kids there now, but as we evolve as a city, as we become more urban, there are going to be more and more opportunities for families with kids to live in the central city if we do the things that create the attraction and the housing that meets the need. You got to have 3-bedroom units. That's just plain and simple. And there's a lot of communities, Vancouver and others, who have done a lot of efforts to try to encourage 3-bedroom housing in the central core of the city. I mentioned, play areas, and just a little proof to the pudding here. We're ranked number 1, in the nation for the amount of playgrounds, 175 throughout the community. But I just kind of zoomed in on the Parks District map and kind of said, well, yeah, but you look in the downtown, not so much. So I think that's just something we need to be thinking about. Talking about seniors a little bit and elements that are really important to encouraging more and more activities and people in the downtown. I think it comes down to spaces and activities is a big piece. Not only from a super active perspective, we're going to rapidly continue to grow our our aging population in the community and in downtown, and having spaces and places for activities, physical exercise, for gathering, just getting together, hanging out in a public space is a really important piece for seniors. And safety, security, comfort are all really important elements that come into play here, especially it's a more vulnerable population. And I think everything from sidewalks being, not trip hazards, little things like that make a difference, to the living environments, and people want to have more, I guess I would, security from the elements. They want to be protected. They want to have spaces that they can be in their housing areas that give them comfort and close access to external or to the outside, all good things to be thinking about. And then of course, mobility. You got to be able to get around. Not everybody has that, the freedom to be able to walk quite as much. And obviously, you see the picture on the bottom. I'm not suggesting we turn into the downtown into kind of a golf cart mecca. But I do think as the community looks at more transportation options and technologies emerge, I think those kind of electric vehicles, small vehicles that help seniors be able to get around in a close proximity is going to be absolutely critical things to think about. I'll just leave a couple thoughts here. When you look at the overall population, I think it's important to look at this profile. You look at Madison on the left as a city as a whole, you see kind of typical things that I think we're all aware of, growth, especially in that population of young adults in the community, but kind of consistent growth throughout. But when you look at the greater downtown Madison area, and I want to be clear, this isn't DMI's footprint downtown, it's a little bit bigger than that. So it goes from basically the coal center to the river. So if you take that area into consideration, you look at what's changed, the far right column from 2000 to 2020, you see that we've seen a reduction in the amount of kids who call this area home, but we've certainly seen a significant increase in our senior population. So I think those are important facts to consider, both in things, why is that happening? What can we do to both serve a growing population, but encourage a more robust, younger population, not only just to live there, but to visit. I'll stop there.
Rob, thank you very much for setting the table. Some great information as we get to our other panelists. We're going to now go to DMI's great friend, Michael Johnson, President and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. They have a huge presence downtown, right on the Capitol Square, working on so many projects. We were just talking about the incredible Val Phillips statue, which will be erected relatively soon, happening downtown, all the activities to bring youth to downtown. Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
It's great to hear, what Boys and Girls Club are up to and how we can make sure that downtown is a great place for all youth in our community.
No doubt, no doubt. Oh, am I supposed to respond to that?
Oh, sorry. You're up. We assumed, right? We would have just naturally thrown in.
I didn't know that was going to be followed up with a question or not. But let me just say thanks and honor to be a part, of this panel. And let me just say, I know most cities are saying 8 to 80. But I think we want to be different than most cities, right? We should be either 80 to 90, 80 to 95. And I would tell you, we just did a 5K, 10K race that was put on by Terry Yankee at Boys and Girls Club. And we had a category that went from, I think, 18 all the way up to 75. And there was a lady that came up, I think she was in her mid 80s. She said, we need a category for 85 and up. And she actually ran the 5 miles. So let's not forget about our 80 and 85-year-olds. And just looking at the data points that the gentleman before me just spoke, there's over 350 seniors that's 85 and up. So let's just not forget about them, because when we talk about being inclusive, seniors are also part of our community as well. One of the things that I would address is that, given the work that Boys and Girls Clubs is doing right now here on the Capitol Square, I think when we think about young people, particularly downtown, I'll just share some things that I think that we're doing well and some things that I think we could be doing better, and how we can make downtown a more inclusive and welcoming place for all young people in our community. One, I love that we have the Children's Museum downtown. That is an amazing asset for the city, for the county, and I think for the state of Wisconsin. So just very, very thankful to have them down there. I also love that groups that have not traditionally been represented downtown is now being represented. Case in point, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County is downtown, and we work to have the Latino Workforce Academy right next door to us. Then you got the Progress Center for Black Women. Now I'm here in Urban Triage, the Black Men Coalition of Dane County, and then even Feeding the Youth. Keep Jason and your team working at making sure that we have groups who are traditionally marginalized in our community represented in downtown Madison. But we need more places that would attract young people and their families downtown. I would love for us to see, I've been at Boys and Girls Club 17 years, so I think I got another 17 years to go. And before my work is done, I would love for us to see an early state-of-the-art early childhood education center downtown. Imagine a place where people who work down there would feel comfortable trusting their kids with state-of-the-art early childhood education center. And I think that can happen in downtown Madison. I would love to see more water parks, playgrounds, and also more affordable houses, 3 bedrooms, like the gentleman shared before me. Housing is getting extremely expensive, in Madison. And, we just raised $25 million for Workforce Center, and we got 10 more million to go. And most of that money is going into an endowment. Why can't we raise $25 million, set it in an endowment, and help to support people, middle-class families who are working, who want to be downtown, to help them stay downtown? And I think we got to think sometimes out of the box to make that happen. I would also love to see skating parks, rolling rinks, cultural relevant social events that would attract young people to come downtown. Just like we have the farmers market and concerts on the square, why not? Shut down State Street and bring a carnival to the city, shut down the streets. All those businesses would benefit. You'll see the big Ferris wheel down there, to see just an amazing time of young people coming downtown and enjoying our city. I would also could see events like that benefit nonprofit organizations, benefiting small businesses on state streets, and can become an economic hub for small businesses down there. So just something I think I'll plant the seed, and I could see that happening in our city. Now, as it relates to questions about being more inclusive, I'll say it again. Let's do 8 to 90, 8 to 95. Let's just be different than other cities. Let's continue to create programs that will attract, businesses of color downtown. When all of the civil unrest was happening, downtown Madison, I was shocked to hear that there was not one Black business on State Street. And so let's change the opportunity equation for Black business owners, Latino business owners, Hmong business owners, and make sure that we have women, represented. And I believe that that it can happen right here in Madison, Wisconsin. Let's continue to work with nonprofits who work in marginalized communities that will bring families downtown. And let's also make sure that the boards that you all sit on, that people in your C-suite represent the fabric of our community, right? So a lot of times we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then you go look on websites of folks who are on panels, and you just don't see it represented. So we have to stay true within our own organizations. Test mine. You go to Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County, look at my leadership team. You see Black, you see white, you see young, you see old, you see LGBTQ, you see the whole gamut, because I believe that diversity will make your organization stronger. And more importantly, when you have an inclusive environment, your organization will thrive. And then finally, I'll just add, I remember back in 2015, we did a movie called The Club, and 1,800 young people showed up at the Overture Center. We spent 6 months filming this movie, and I remember Steve Goldberg coming up to me and said, "I've never, ever seen this many people of color in the Overture Center." And it was 1,800 folks. We're going to recreate that this summer. We're bringing a Black stage play to Madison and on July 16th. We're going to have an all-white party. Now, that doesn't mean this is a party for all white people. That just means you dress up in all white. But I was shocked that, people that know what white parties are, you get dressed up, and we're going to bring a couple of thousand people down to the Overture Center after seeing this play. And I want to encourage you all to participate. I say all that to say that we need to have more culturally relevant events downtown that's going to attract people of color. And then the last thing I'll just add is that we need to see more public art that's reflective of women, more reflective of people of color. That's why we pushed to have the Val Phillips statue. And we got support from both Republicans and Democrats, and over 1,500 people contributed towards that statue. And now Val Phillips will become the first Black woman in the United States of America to have a singular statue in our state capital right here in Madison, Wisconsin. And I'll give one more example. When Tony Robinson was killed, as you know, it was a young man that was involved in officer-involved shooting. You can have events and not worry about young people getting in trouble. When the DA was going to decide whether or not Officer Kennedy was going to be indicted, we decided to partner with American Family Insurance and others, and we had a unity concert, and within 7 hours, 3,500 kids registered, and we had to shut it down. And what an amazing experience that was for those young people. I could see that happen in downtown on a regular basis. And people like Scott Forrester, people like Peter Gray, who is tied to DMI, we need to see you on our boards, on our committees, embedded in communities all throughout the county and bringing people back to downtown Madison. We have one of the best downtown cities that I believe is vibrant, that I could believe that will continue to thrive, but it has to be an inclusive environment if we want to take it to the next level. So I think I went way over my time, but thank you, Jason.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you for your passion, your leadership, fantastic work. I think you and I have a joint friend, Angela Russell, who said it best. She said, we have to try to create soulful spaces and soulful places for every soul in our community here downtown. Exactly the work that you're doing, Michael. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You talked about the great Children's Museum, how lucky we are to have an award-winning Children's Museum here in downtown. We have the Director of Marketing and Communication, Jonathan Zarap, live in the Children's Museum right now. I'm hoping, Jonathan, you just went down the slide.
I haven't yet. I was just busy setting up, and I did want to show this is not a background. It looks like a virtual background. It's real. So I first wanted to say how important it is for us to be downtown. This institution has been in 4 locations, 3 moves, and every time has chosen to be downtown. And that's partly because we want to be a museum for everybody. And in a city that's often east or west, being right downtown makes us a museum that can welcome every kid from every neighborhood. And it's interesting that Michael stretched it on the older end, because I'm going to stretch it on the younger end and say, I want to make it, I think it needs to be 8 weeks to 80. Now we understand 8 to 80 sounds great, and it doesn't really mean it's only 8 years old, but really for us, it's important to point that out. I'm in the wilderness right now. This space is only for 5 and under. older sibling can sneak in here, but basically this is for 5 and under. Those years are so important for education and for brain development, and not the kind of like, you know, pedagogical, didactic, whatever you want to say, education you get in school, but like socialization and feeding curiosity and a passion for learning. And that's what an environment like this can do. So, and it's just essential that kids get in here early. We did notice from our data, and one of the things I'll stress here is that we try to remain relevant to the community and evolve by listening. And we do that in so many different ways, either by partnering, like our great friends across the street at the Y, so many other partners, the county we've worked with on Trash Lab, or looking at the data from our visitation, or we've gotten much better post-pandemic at looking at surveys, post-visit surveys, and analyzing that data. And one of the things we noticed a while ago was that people were not bringing their really young kids. They were bringing them when they started to walk, and there was a perception that it wasn't necessarily a great place for a baby. So we started a first-time parent membership, which gives a free membership to anybody having their first kid until the kid is 18 months old. And so 2 caregivers and a kid, whatever your family looks like, free. And that is really like, it's been tremendously popular, and it kind of creates a pipeline for kids to get into the museum and hopefully stay with the museum. Which brings up another point about why we want kids down here and families down here at that age. We are a gateway for families coming downtown. They set their habits early as a family, and kids set their habits for what they enjoy. And so if we can get them coming downtown right away, they will keep coming downtown. And culturally, a kid coming to a children's museum is then primed to want to go to an art museum, MoMOCA, Overture, you know, they go up through Kids in the Rotunda. So it's vitally important that we bring families down here right away. And then I was thinking about what we do here is actually a microcosm of 8 to 80 or 8 weeks to 80 in the museum, and how you scale that out to the rest of the downtown, right? And a kid can come here when they're born and sit in the baby pit right over there. We need a better name for that. But there's a place just for babies and parents to hang out. And there are many other things that a really young kid can enjoy and learn from here. Then they work their way up through the museum until they're climbing up the big climber, or they're out in our new Wonderground and clambering up places that only bigger kids can do. And then maybe when they're a teen, they might participate in our teen workforce program, or come back and volunteer. When they get a little older, Adult Swim comes up. And they're coming right back in, and they're doing a lot of things that kids do and enjoying the museum in a really similar way that kids enjoy. And these are 20 and 30 somethings, and they want to craft. They want to pound little nails into things, and you know, they have a beer in hand that the kid doesn't have. But other than that, it looks really similar. And then they want to get married, and they can do that here. And this reflects their values and their sense of playfulness, many of them. And then they have kids, and they get a membership, and then eventually they come with their grandkids, and you know, and then we're on to planned giving. So, you know, it's the whole cycle. And when I think about how to scale that out to the rest of the city and do more of that, I mean, there are some obvious things that the city can, and the city writ large can do. And, you know, some of them aren't surprising, like parking we hear about in our surveys. Like people feel it's expensive and difficult. So maybe a reduced rate on the buses that's really clear and easy to use, and you know, and maybe some improved transportation, which was alluded to before. We could use more family-friendly restaurants, and that's a real tough one these days, right? But I think the thing that, you know, those you'd expect anybody to say, I think the thing that's maybe an insight to take away is that playfulness and that sense of whimsy. And you know, these things have come up with everybody so far. We need to have a more playful, artful downtown. And when we think about planning a city, we often think about utilitarian things. We think about making an efficient city, a city that works well, but it's really the things that, you know, the Bucky statues worked really well. It's not, you know, it's not high art, but it pulled people downtown. It was whimsical. It wasn't there to serve some, you know, purpose to feed somebody, but it creates a whimsical, joyful, beautiful downtown. That's what the museum is. That's what brings people in. And I think if we could do more of that, you know, playgrounds, sure, but to create more surprise and whimsy, which is really what the Children's Museum is all about. And I'll tell you one story that kind of connects it back to economic development, though, and that's, we noticed that with our Adult Swims, which is 20 and 30 somethings enjoying what the 8-year-olds are enjoying, we noticed a lot of them work for Epic for some reason. And I guess Epic noticed that too, because they asked us for some photos they could put on their recruiting page of Adult Swim, because this is the kind of thing that makes a vibrant downtown, a vibrant city, a vibrant place where you want to move to and work. And the last thing I'll say about the kind of the 8 weeks to 80 dynamic and why it's so important to design for kids that age is that those are our most vulnerable. And when you take the health considerations of that population into consideration, like for instance, in the museum, we use no VOC paint. You know, there's no off-gassing of anything. Everything is natural. Everything is sustainable. That's healthy for children. Well, that also happens to be healthy for older adults. We currently have a mask requirement, you know, and that's like, people like it, don't like it. We survey them. They seem to like it more than they don't like it. But basically, that's something that protects our youngest. That's also going to protect our oldest. So I think whenever you design for that, you know, whether it's how long it takes to cross the street for a light, you know, all those things. If you design for the youngest, you will also be designing for the oldest and designing a community that works for everybody. So, oh, and I wanted to say, though, leave it on a really up note. Our most exciting thing that's going on right now is that we just, the pandemic made us speed up our Wonderground project, which was basically wrecking our dilapidated, unusable parking deck and turning it into a wonderful play space. When the pandemic came, we sped that up. We did that in April to October of 21. We did the whole thing and built it because we knew families wanted a safe outdoor place to play. So I'm just going to show you that. We're still working on it, actually. There's another stage of it. So if anybody wants to support it, that's something the city can do too. So let's see, I'm going to share here. And that there is the one underground. So we're pleased as punch with that. It's just, you know, people love it, kids love it. You know, if the downtown looked like that, yeah, a lot more families would come down. I'll leave it there.
I love it. This is such a wonderful facility. If you haven't seen it coming around the corner, stop by. It's a wonderful place for every age. So Jonathan, thank you. And I love that we're extending this from 8 weeks now to 95. So here you go. Speaking of the latter end, we have a great friend of DMI, Sally Jo Spaney, who is a senior center and senior services manager for the City of Madison Senior Center, an institution here in downtown. She's going to talk about how we can reduce barriers, increase usability for the senior community in Madison. Hello, Sally Jo, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing just fine, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. This is a great conversation. It's really been fun to listen to my fellow panelists talk about the importance of cities that serve folks from 8 weeks to 80 plus. And of course, the higher end of that age bracket is a community that I'm very passionate about. The Madison Senior Center has been an integral part of the downtown Madison well, we're coming up on our 40th anniversary. So we're on West Mifflin Street, and we have been serving older adults here for years and are happy to be part of the downtown because of all the possibilities that exist. And I think going forward, some of the things that we can develop for those older adults will be things like intergenerational programming. When I hear from Michael Johnson and Jonathan about the opportunities going on in their shops, I get excited about future partnerships that could happen. Of course, over the years, the downtown has evolved to address the needs of seniors and those who use the senior center by, creating housing for older adults and cultural offerings. The walkability factor is really appealing to older adults, and our downtown is quite walkable. It's wonderful for older adults to be able to live downtown and walk to restaurants, theaters, shopping, and places like the Madison Senior Center for quality of life enrichment. It's just really a positive aspect in the lives of older adults. Things like other things that have happened that have increased the wonderful downtown area have been additions to crosswalks, like flashing beacons that alert traffic that pedestrians are crossing. It takes an older adult about a third longer to cross the street than those of younger ages. And so those safety measures are important. The Department of Transportation recently completed its Vision Zero action plan, and I know they're continuing to address concerns like that. Also, the traffic calming techniques like roundabouts and speed bumps encourage slower, more attentive driving, make traveling by foot safer for older adults and actually for everybody. And then, of course, speed reduction efforts help protect our older adults. And all of these things are happening downtown. We also see some pedestrian refuge islands that reduce crossing distances that allow for resting halfway through those multi-lane streets, which is also nice. Downtown has also evolved in its programming by, the programming that's offered through our center here, the public library, Overture Center, and different resources and activities like Lunchtime Live that provide those creative outlets and social aspects of healthy living for older adults. We are also currently engaged with the City of Madison Department of Public Health and a steering committee of older adults in the city that are working with the AARP and creating an action plan for age-friendly communities, and we're excited about more improvements to the downtown area as we work through that. Some of the things that I think would really help to reduce barriers and increase usability for older adults of downtown Madison include accessible and affordable transportation options for older adults, preferably those that offer door-to-door service that's reliable and safe. Ambulating to and from bus stops can be difficult. Cabs are expensive. Paratransit's limited to specific eligibility. And we need more affordable housing downtown to meet the needs of more older adults. An increase in intergenerational activities would be a great way to increase older adult presence downtown. And additionally, I often hear that older adults who don't live on the isthmus hesitate to come in because of a perceived lack of safety. Some older adults, particularly those with mobility, hearing, or vision challenges, are unsure of how to safely navigate places like the Capitol Square and State Street. And some innovative programming could help. Perhaps intergenerational ambassadors could accompany the area on foot with older adults. Maybe activities created especially for older adults could be appreciated too. Things like Know Your Elder Hour in a park downtown, highlighting less busy times on the square and State Street so older adults can feel more comfortable moving around without crowds. And we need to get creative and find ways for older adults to navigate, and maybe some of the ideas like golf carts or bicycles or like rickshaws, where people can be transported about without walking, can take away some of that intimidation factor. And I think that another issue that limits older adults' desire to dine downtown and really needs to be seriously looked at is the noise level in food and drink establishments. Most restaurants and bars play background music at a level that really interferes with an older adult's ability to hear table conversations or converse with a server, for instance. And if we could explore some ways to decrease that noise level and make it easier for older adults to want to come and interact in the downtown area, I think that would be a positive move. And then, of course, inclusivity. We need more activities that appeal to people of color and LGBTQ plus folks, and any culturally specific sorts of activities would be great. And again, I've said it a few times already, but intergenerational activities would be wonderful, and more opportunities for those physical activities like Michael talked about. Our older adults today aren't the older adults that were around 20 years ago. People who are in their 70s are still quite physically active and resilient. And while we're a college town and there's always been a large offering of educational opportunities for continuing education, et cetera, we need to recognize that people 70 and older are still very physically active. They like to run races, play pickleball, walk, and partnerships for grandparents or older adults raising minor children with any of the downtown agencies serving kids would be a great place to start. I think that, some of the things that I've already talked about that folks say they really like is coming downtown for performances at the Overture. the walkability that's exists here. And again, the biggest challenges tend to center around transportation and safety, things like this. So I'm excited for the future. I really hope that some intergenerational partnerships can start to occur and some new and innovative ways for people to get around. Thanks for the opportunity today.
Oh, thank you, Sally Jo, for all you're doing. This is a huge population we're talking about here in downtown Madison. From 2000 to 2020, percentage-wise, it's almost doubled from 4% of the total downtown population, 55 plus, now to over 7.5%. This is important. So we're going to end here with our great friend, Darren Wazinski, the Associate State Director for AERP, who is helping with the work that Sally Jo just talked about in age-friendly communities. You know, he is someone that really understands downtown cores as well. So you're the kind of great last speaker is someone that worked with WEDC in downtown development for years. So why are downtown so important for seniors, and what can we do to improve and make sure we have an inclusive space for everybody in every age?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Downtowns, they're always and have always been the centers of the community. Like, you want to get an idea of the health of the community, the vibrancy of the community, you look at the downtown, and that'll always tell you. And you can think of your own travels as you go about. If you see a downtown that's not cared for, or one that doesn't have a lot of people in it, then it makes you question just the health of the community in general. And that's one of the benefits that we have in Madison, that it is a vibrant downtown. And then also just thinking about, ARP's target population is those who are 50 plus. And we're the first ones to say that's not a monolithic group. Somebody who's 50 and older, we don't ever lump them into one age bracket. That your abilities and where you are 50 to 60, 60 to 70, and so on are completely different. And so understanding somebody's needs as they go forward, some place to live and some place to visit and interact with, I think is really important with our downtowns. To echo some of what Sally Jo had said, simple things like having the businesses understand, what is an age-friendly business? How are the menus? I know that, even I'm approaching 50 and will be here sooner than later this year. But, especially at new places I'm walking in, and the menus have gotten so complicated, and they're put up on the screens, and you're trying to register all that while trying to make a decision. So, is there a way to help streamline for somebody? So even, that helps with kids too. I've been a parent of young kids, and although we'd been to McDonald's plenty of times, every time was like the first time they've ever seen one of those menus, and how to process that. And so, all of that just helps. As Sally Jo said, and the others, mobility. The typical American outlives their ability to drive by 7 to 10 years. What do they do after that? It can either be a way of social isolation, which is an awful determinant for health and future outcomes there, or a way to stay connected to the community. I didn't realize this, but in my early career, I had the ability to work in a neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio called German Village, and live there. And I'm so sorry I missed this when it was there. It didn't register, but it was an awesome way for me to experience intergenerational walkability that I counted among my friends, people. I was in my mid-20s, but people of every generation, including a centenarian. And I saw that centenarian. She lived alone. She went to the market every day. She walked downtown for all of her stuff, and her neighbors knew her. And so when something was amiss or Katie wasn't there, neighbors were concerned. And neighbors stepped up. When, she was having some trouble, the neighbors had a chat with her doctor, not breaking any HIPAA laws, but saying, here's what we're seeing. Here's the Katie we knew. And that is so vitally important. And I think, in any of our downtowns, we can see that as we accommodate for housing. And just looking at the housing that we are putting in, is it a universal design? Do we have low thresholds that are out there? How is it? Is it designed as somebody who loses some mobility as they get older, that they can still function and feel safe in the building? Or is it designed for an able-bodied 35-year-old where if something happens or they get older, they have to move on? And so paying attention to that, and it's stuff that, is a benefit to not only those who need it, but none of us know when anything's going to happen to us. We could, if we have just a no threshold shower that we walk into, we never know when we're going to break a leg and are on one of those, knee walkers to get us through, and we really need that rather than having to step in a tub or any of those simple things, or when we might need handrails. And so, all of that stuff just helps. And the transportation, as Sally just said, just multi options, but also just thinking about mobility throughout the seasons. We tend to focus a lot on the summertime and nicer weather, but I can tell you that, I've experienced it. Downtown could be a challenge for somebody with mobility issues in the wintertime, as the snow gets out there and it's piled in front of the crosswalks in the streets. What can we do to help improve that? Or, maybe the snow is gone, but there's all these huge puddles that somebody has to work through. Like if you're not walking with a walker or some mobility device, you can easily step around it or step into a snow pile. But sometimes you're just stuck in there and have to walk through that. And so these are all things. And, as we've talked about the whole concept of 880 cities, it is a wonderful organization built, headquartered in Toronto, Canada, and AARP Wisconsin has partnered with them on a lot of things. And one of there are 3 rights as they espouse that all their work follows just resonate with me. And I think it works for everybody, no matter their age. They say that every citizen has a right to mobility in any season. Every citizen has a right to access public spaces, and every citizen has a right to engage. And I think that if, we can adopt that in Madison, that's great for the downtown, and that's great for the city of Madison as a whole.
Well, Darren, thank you for the work you're doing. And if you didn't notice in the chat, the originator of 880 Cities is going to be in Stevens Point, I think, correct, Darren?
That is correct. Next Wednesday, for a free engagement, it'll be a smaller engagement, but a chance to connect with Gil Penalosa, and just, work on some interactive things on how to make your community an 880 city.
Well, I hope you can make it. Thank you to AARP for all the work they've done with 880 cities. Now we're calling them 8 months to 100. We'll go to 100 cities. Also in the chat as well. Please, July 16th, head to the Boys and Girls Club White Party. Peter Gray, always in good in the chat as well. We've got time, a few minutes here for questions and answers from our panel. So if you have a question, send it in through the chat or send it right through the Q&A. We've got one question already talking about how do we make spaces accessible, right? Cost can obviously be an impediment, particularly for younger and older groups. So are there some ways that we can make event spaces more affordable for small groups and nonprofits that are doing much of this work? Anyone can chime in first.
We're grappling with that right now as we rebuild our facility rental program, and being primarily a children's museum during the day, and our rental program, like for weddings and such, we wouldn't do it if it wasn't a revenue source. And the best we've got right now, we used to give pretty heavy nonprofit discounts throughout, and sometimes, partner to Pride Prom was free, for a long time. I don't think we can afford to do that as we rebuild it. So, do those events need to take place on Sunday when there's not an opportunity cost? Could they be funded like some of our other access programs for $1 admission, $15 memberships that are so important to the organization? Could there be an access program for rentals? I don't know, but we're looking at that right now about how to do that. So I'd love to hear people's answers.
Yeah. I would just say, great point, Jonathan. Access is a huge issue, whether it's sports or the arts, and young people who live in marginalized situations usually are the ones who don't benefit from those opportunities. I firmly believe that our community, and particularly downtown, needs some sort of equity fund that would support families to get kids like you. Go look at all the leagues in Madison. Go look at soccer. Go look at baseball, t-ball. Look at the arts, and look at almost every extracurricular activity in the city. And missing many times, particularly with the private ones, you don't see kids of color. And so I think we have to figure out a way where when groups like the Children's Museum or other groups want to host additional kids and want to expand to service other kids, there's a fund where those agencies can be supported to ensure that from a financial point of view, that we all can make sure that we're being as inclusive as we can. And I'm just a big fan of endowments now because, you know, I just believe that in order for us to be able to sustain this work and do it in an equitable way, there needs to be funds to be able to sustain it and to be able to support it. And it's taken me a long time to figure that out in my 20 plus years doing it, but it's something that I think we got to focus on as a community.
Let's take your wisdom and do that here. You know, you're doing an amazing job with endowments. Last question, we've only got a couple seconds here, is to both Darren and Rob. Are there cities across the country that are really doing well with both older and younger populations, role model cities for us here in Madison? Anything that you all can think of?
I would say a good place to start, and I'll put a selfless plug in for the work of ARP, is ARP's livability index, and I'll drop it into the chat. I'd actually looked up a particular street in Madison, so this is what it's going to come up with. This is West Mifflin Street, which used to be one of the highest rated census tracts for livability in the country. I haven't seen with the new ones where it's going, but it's access to you know, shopping and transit and cultural amenities and education. Just made it up. But at livabilityindex.aarp.org, you can compare communities and how they go for livability across all age groups. And, you know, with that, you will see some opportunities, and then there'll be some challenges that are kind of insurmountable. You know, one of their measures is access to roadway pollution. We're not getting rid of that anytime soon, but there are other things that we can totally address that we go there. So livabilityindex.aarp.org is a great way to compare communities.
You know, I don't have a whole lot too specific, but I think if you're talking about being holistically inclusive as it relates to a center of the city at a scale that we're at, I think looking to our bigger urban areas is absolutely essential, especially, again, things that have happened right in the downtown in the Loop in Chicago. There's some great examples there. It's close by. I also think, you know, when looking for model examples of places both for seniors and kids knit into the fabric of everyday life of the city, I look to Europe and South America, just historic urbanized areas, and see how they've done things over a much, you know, we're a young country. There's a lot of people who have been thinking about this and planning cities in a much longer time frame. So I think there's a lot of great examples. Paris comes to mind, obviously, with how they've evolved as a city for all people that welcome a breadth of ages into everyday life.
Thank you for this, I thought, insightful conversation about how we make downtown and our spaces equitable, vibrant, and welcoming for everyone of every age, from 8 months to 100 years old. Thank you to Jonathan Zarap, to Darren Wazinski, to Rob Gottschalk, Sally Jo Spaney, and to Michael Johnson for all of your insight and wisdom, and for what you're doing in your leadership for building a much more inclusive city and downtown. Thank you as well to our friends at Sinair and Fiore Companies for your partnership here with our Nosh at Noon series. You can check out our website at www.downtownmadison.org for all of our events that are coming up. Hope we see you soon downtown. One of these days, summer will be here. We'll see you soon, and have a great day. Thanks for all your support of downtown. Talk to you soon. Bye now.